How's it going, everyone, and welcome back to another installation. Today we're going to be installing the chrome deletes for the side on this 2015 Acura TLX. This is how it looks before and this is how it looks after. And if you're interested in the product, the link for the product will be down in the description below. But with that being said, let's get started with today's video. So before we get started, the first thing we want to do is we want to make sure we have a clean area we're working with. All we're going to do is we're just going to apply soapy solution, and we want to make sure we clean any dirt or debris that's remaining on the chrome delete. That way the vinyl can stick a lot better. So let's get started. And we're just gonna open the doors. That way we could get inside of the door. And we just wanna make sure everything is free from dirt and debris. So now that we have a clean area we're working with, the first piece we're gonna begin with is for the bottom trim for the front door. So all we're gonna do is we're just gonna grab our piece. And the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna align right here close to the mirror, and we're just gonna work our way back. And I'll show you what that looks like. Just gonna set it down. And if you need to move the mirror, you could always move it. Just gonna align it right at the edge. So now that I have it aligned, I'm just gonna follow the chrome piece, and I just wanna make sure I have full coverage. And then all I'm doing is I'm just releasing the air with my finger. And if you see that any chrome is sticking out, all we could do is we could just realign it and reposition it. Now that I have it aligned, all I'm gonna do is I'm gonna grab my squeegee and I'm gonna start squeegeeing it. And with this, I'm just gonna take my time to make sure I don't have any air bubbles. So we're pretty much done. As you can see, we do have a little bit of excess. So what we could do is we could just start tucking in the excess material underneath the chrome, and I'll show you what that looks like. Now that I tucked most of it down, in the case you do have a little bit of excess material, we could just grab our blade and we could just carefully trim the excess material to get a clean finish. Now, like I mentioned, that's in the case if you do have excess material, and that is optional. So you take a look here, you will have a little bit of excess material. So we're gonna trim it off. But what I'm gonna do first is I'm just gonna grab my heat gun and I'm gonna heat it up so it can stick in place a little bit better. So now I'm just gonna grab my blade and I'm carefully gonna trim off the excess. And now any excess material I'm just gonna tuck in. So now that you're done, the last step that you're gonna do is you're gonna post heat the vinyl. That way it sticks better. So I'll show you what that looks like. So now we're done with this piece, and we're just gonna repeat the same process for the rest of the windows, and I'll show you what that looks like. So now we're gonna be moving on to the rear door for the chrome. And like I mentioned, we're gonna be repeating the same process. We're gonna make sure everything is clean, even underneath the chrome. And then we're just gonna get our piece, gonna align it to the edge. And like I mentioned, we're just gonna make sure that all of the chrome is being covered. And if it's not being covered, we could just lift it up and reposition it. That part is done. Now I'm just gonna bring it down with my fingers. Now that I have it done, I'm just gonna come with my squeegee. Make sure I get rid of any air that's trapped. And I'm just gonna begin to squeegee everything out. Now that I have everything squeegeed out, the next step is I'm just gonna grab my squeegee and I'm gonna start tucking in the excess vinyl. And one thing you could do to better help you tuck it in is you could just grab your heat gun, and we're just gonna heat it up lightly. So now if you do have any excess material, again, we're just gonna grab our blade and we're gonna carefully trim off the excess. Now the last step, like I mentioned, is to post-heat the vinyl. That way the vinyl forms to the shape of the chrome and it could last longer. And with that, I'm done with the rear door. So we're gonna move on to the quarter window now. So now we're moving on to the quarter window side. So we're just gonna grab our piece. And like I mentioned, we're just repeating the same steps. So I'm just gonna align it, make sure I have full coverage. Now that I have it aligned, I'm just gonna grab my squeegee and squeegee out any air bubbles that are remaining. So one tip I do recommend for you to be able to more easily maneuver the vinyl, especially right here in this area, we're just gonna grab our heat gun and we're gonna heat up the vinyl. That way it's a lot easier to manage. So now that I have my vinyl in place and I took down all the edges, my next step is we're gonna grab our blade and we're gonna get rid of the excess material. And with this step, all we're gonna do is we're just gonna take our time to make sure we do it correct. And I'll show you what that looks like. Now the final step is again to post heat, so let's do that. And so with that, we're done with the quarter window. So like I mentioned, again, it's the same steps. And so with that, that's the end of the installation. If you guys do have any questions, make sure to comment down below. And now just to recap on what we did, we just aligned the vinyl and then all we did was just follow the chrome piece, making sure all the chrome was covered. After that, we took any excess material, and if we still had any excess material, we just trimmed it out. After that, we just post heat it and we just repeat the same steps for the rest of the chrome. But like I mentioned, it's a pretty simple installation. One thing to keep in mind is you do have to make sure everything is clean, even inside the chrome. In the case that you still have dirt or any debris or grease or any chemical remaining before installation, then it is going to be harder for the vinyl to stick. But like I mentioned, that's the end of the installation. Thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.